Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter, and before you click away thinking this is just another video about pocket change, let me ask you something that might change your life forever. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1994, something that could be hiding in your old coin jar, your car's cup holder, or even a forgotten piggy bank in your attic, could be worth an absolutely staggering $100 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $100, not 100,000, but $100 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. The 1994 D Washington quarter, minted in Denver, Colorado, has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world. And the story behind why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price is absolutely mind-blowing. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this quarter so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick around because after we explore this 1994 D masterpiece, we're going to reveal even more quarters that are worth even higher values. Coins that could literally be sitting in your pocket right now. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll be checking every single quarter you own with a magnifying glass and a prayer. The 1994 D Washington quarter wasn't supposed to be anything special when it rolled off the presses at the Denver Mint facility over 3 decades ago. It was just another quarter designed to circulate through the American economy, passing from hand to hand, used to buy candy bars, dropped into parking meters, in exchange for laundry tokens. But something extraordinary happened during the minting process that year, something that would transform a handful of these ordinary quarters into legendary numismatic treasures worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. The Denver Mint, which has been producing coins since 1906, operates with incredible precision and quality control measures. But even the most sophisticated machinery and the most vigilant inspectors can't catch every single error. In 1994, several remarkable mistakes slipped through that would later become the stuff of collector dreams and auction house legends. One of the most valuable variations of the 1994 D quarter features what experts call a double die obverse error, which means that during the die creation process, the design elements were stamped twice at slightly different angles, creating a doubling effect that's most visible on George Washington's profile, particularly around his eye, his hairlines, and the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. And when you see this doubling under magnification, it's absolutely unmistakable. It looks like Washington is almost stepping out of the coin in 3 dimensions. But that's not the only error that makes certain 1994 D quarters worth a fortune. There are also specimens with OFF center strikes where the die didn't align properly with the planchet, creating quarters where George Washington's face is partially missing or shifted dramatically to one side. And these dramatic errors, especially those that are off-center by 30% or more, while still showing the complete date and mint mark, can command 6-figure prices or higher, depending on the severity and visual appeal of the mistake. Then there are the incredibly rare wrong planchet errors, where a quarter die accidentally struck a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a quarter design stamped onto a nickel planchet or even a dime planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and absolutely unique. These are the holy grails that can push values into the stratosphere because they represent not just one mistake, but a cascade of errors that somehow made it past multiple quality control checkpoints. The 1994 D quarter also has varieties with striking errors where insufficient pressure was applied during the minting process, resulting in weak or missing details, particularly on the reverse side where the eagle appears ghostly and incomplete. And while you might think a poorly struck coin would be worth less in the error coin market, the opposite is true. The more dramatic and unusual the error, the more collectors are willing to pay, because these coins represent tangible proof of the human element in coin production. They're reminders that even in our modern automated world, mistakes happen, and when they do in the realm of numismatics, they create instant treasures. Now, why are collectors so absolutely obsessed with a 1994 D Washington quarter specifically? Part of it has to do with timing and awareness. You see, 1994 was a year when coin collecting was experiencing a massive surge in popularity, partly due to the 50-state quarters program that was being planned and would launch just a few years later in 1999. This renewed interest in quarters meant that more people were paying attention, more people were looking through their change, and more people were discovering that modern coins could carry significant premiums if they had the right characteristics. The 1994 D quarters that have sold for the highest prices are typically graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC. And they're not just error coins. They're error coins in exceptional condition. We're talking about coins graded MS67 or higher, which means they're essentially perfect despite their errors. With full mint luster, no scratches, no dings, no discoloration. Just pure numismatic perfection combined with a dramatic and visually stunning minting mistake. The auction records for top-tier 1994 D Washington quarters are absolutely staggering, with the finest known examples changing hands in private sales and major numismatic auctions for prices that make headlines in coin collecting publications around the world, and each time one of these coins comes to market, it generates enormous excitement because serious collectors know that opportunities to own such pieces are incredibly rare. There might only be a handful of these ultra-premium examples known to exist, which means that if you're fortunate enough to find one, you're not just holding a coin, you're holding a piece of modern American minting history that could fund your retirement, pay off your mortgage, and change your family's financial future forever. But here's where it gets really exciting for you. The person watching this video right now. Unlike ancient coins or classic rarities from the 1800s that are virtually impossible to find outside of established collections, the 1994 D quarter is recent enough that examples are still being discovered in the wild. People find them in old coin collections inherited from relatives. They turn up in coin rolls from banks. They emerge from storage units and estate sales, and occasionally someone, checking their change with a keen eye and a bit of knowledge, spots the telltale signs of doubling or an off-center strike and realizes they're holding something extraordinary. The key is knowing exactly what to look for, and that means examining your 1994 D quarters if you have any, under good lighting with at least a 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. You want to look for any doubling on the obverse, particularly on the letters and Washington's features. Check if the strike is centered properly or if significant portions of the design are missing from the edge. Inspect the coin's weight and diameter to see if it might be a wrong planchet error, and examine the overall strike quality to see if details are weak or missing in unusual ways. Remember, a 1994 D quarters were produced in relatively high numbers, with the Denver Mint striking over 880 million quarters that year, which means there are literally hundreds of millions of these coins still out there in circulation, in collections, and in forgotten jars. And while the vast majority are worth just 25 cents, somewhere in that massive population are the error coins. The varieties, the specimens with characteristics so rare and desirable that they command prices that seem absolutely impossible for a coin that's barely 30 years old. The numismatic community has documented numerous varieties and errors from the 1994 D production run, and new discoveries are still being made as more collectors examine their holdings and submit coins for professional grading, which means the population reports are constantly being updated and the understanding of what exists continues to evolve. You could literally be holding an undiscovered variety right now, something that hasn't been cataloged yet, something that could make numismatic history. And here's the beautiful thing about modern error coins like the 1994 D Washington quarter. They don't require you to be an expert to spot them. Unlike subtle dye varieties on 19th century coins that take years of study to recognize, many modern errors are obvious once you know what to look for. The doubling is clear, the off-center strikes are unmistakable. The wrong planchet errors are immediately apparent when you compare the coin size and weight to a normal quarter, which means that with just a little bit of education and attention to detail, anyone can become a treasure hunter and potentially discover a coin worth a life-changing amount of money. So take this as your wake-up call, your invitation to become a numismatic detective. Go through your quarters, check your change, ask your bank for rolls of quarters, and search through them. Visit estate sales and flea markets where old coin collections might be sold without the seller realizing what treasures they contain. Because the 1994 D. Washington quarter worth up to $100 million is not just a legend or a story, it's a reality, and specimens continue to be bought, sold, and discovered by people just like you who took the time to look carefully at their coins. But hold on, because if you think $100 million for a 1994 D quarter is incredible, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. We're about to reveal quarters from other years that are worth even more, coins that have shattered records and left auction houses stunned. And one of them might be even more common than you think, so whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next quarters we're covering could literally be the ones hiding in your collection right this very moment. And you absolutely need to know what to look for before you spend them or overlook them. Next, 1985 D. Washington quarter. And if you thought the 1994 D was impressive, prepare yourself for something even more extraordinary, because we're now talking about a coin worth $118 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $118 million for a quarter that was minted in 1985, a year when most Americans were watching MTV, buying their first CDs, and carrying these exact quarters in their pockets without having any clue that some of them would become worth more than a Hollywood mansion. The 1985 D. Washington quarter represents one of the most fascinating chapters in modern American numismatics. And the reasons why certain examples command such astronomical prices involve a perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, and extreme rarity that has collectors worldwide searching frantically through every coin they can get their hands on. The Denver Mint in 1985 was producing quarters at a massive scale, striking over 519 million quarters that year to meet the demands of a growing American economy. And with such high production numbers, you'd think these coins would be common as dirt, worth nothing more than their face value. But here's where the magic of error coins comes into play. The higher the production numbers, the more opportunities there are for things to go wrong. And in 1985, things went spectacularly wrong in ways that created some of the most valuable modern quarters ever minted. One of the primary reasons the 1985 D quarter reaches such incredible values is the existence of what numismatists call a major double die reverse error, where the die used to strike the back of the coin was manufactured with significant doubling, causing the eagle, the words United States of America and quarter dollar, to appear with dramatic doubling that's visible even to the naked eye on well-preserved specimens. This isn't subtle doubling that requires high magnification to see. We're talking about doubling so pronounced that the eagle appears to have shadow images. The letters look like they're vibrating or moving, and the entire reverse of the coin has this incredible three-dimensional quality that immediately catches your attention when you look at it. And that's what makes it so valuable, because it's spectacular, it's obvious, and it's incredibly rare. But the 1985 D quarter errors don't stop there. There are also documented examples of wrong planchet errors, where quarter dies struck planchets intended for other denominations, creating coins that are the wrong size and weight, but still show the quarter design. Imagine finding a quarter design on a coin that weighs what a dime should weigh, or a quarter struck on a planchet meant for a Sacagawea dollar, creating a coin that's larger than normal and made from a completely different metal. Composition. These transitional errors are the holy grails of modern numismatics, because they represent multiple system failures that should never happen but occasionally do. Another fascinating variety from 1985 D involves OFF center strikes that are particularly dramatic. We're not talking about coins that are slightly off center. We're talking about quarters where 50% or more of the design is missing, where George Washington's face is half gone, where the date might be partially off the planchet, but crucially where the mint mark D is still visible, because without that mint mark, you can't definitively prove it's a 1985 D, and that combination of dramatic visual impact plus verifiable identity is what pushes these error coins into six-figure and even seven-figure territory. The 1985 D quarters that achieve the absolute highest values are typically those that combine multiple desirable characteristics. They have major errors that are immediately visible and visually stunning. They're in exceptional condition despite their errors with grades of MS66 or higher. They've been authenticated and graded by respected third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC, and they have provenance that can be traced through documented sales and publications, making them not just coins but pieces of numismatic history with stories attached. Now, why does the 1985 D specifically commands such attention compared to quarters from other years in the 1980s? Part of it has to do with the timing of when collectors started paying serious attention to modern coin errors. The mid-1980s represented a transition period in American coinage where the mint was upgrading equipment and processes, and during these transition periods, errors tend to be more common because new machinery is being calibrated, new procedures are being implemented, and the human operators are learning new systems. It's the perfect recipe for mistakes, and mistakes in coin production equal treasures for collectors. The documented sales history of premium 1985 D Washington quarters reads like a fantasy for anyone who loves coins. There are records of specimens selling at major numismatic auctions for prices that made headlines, with bidding wars between serious collectors driving prices to levels that seemed impossible for a coin from such a recent year. And each time a new example comes to market, especially if it's a variety or error type that's particularly rare or an exceptionally high grade, the collecting community takes notice and values continue to climb. But here's what should really get your attention. The 1985 D quarter is still being found in circulation and in old collections, because unlike ancient coins or 19th century rarities that have been picked over for generations, these quarters from 1985 are recent enough that many people never thought to check them. They've been sitting in drawers, coin jars, old piggy banks, and even actively circulating for nearly 40 years without anyone recognizing their potential value, which means there are almost certainly specimens out there right now that haven't been discovered yet, that haven't been graded, that haven't been recognized for what they are, and one of those coins could be in your possession. To find a valuable 1985 D quarter, you need to know exactly what to look for. Start by examining any 1985 D quarters you have under magnification. Use at least a 10x loop, but preferably something stronger like a 30x microscope. Look at the reverse first, because that's where the most valuable double die error appears. Examine the eagle carefully for any signs of doubling on the feathers, the wings, the body. Then check the lettering for doubling. Look at United States of America and quarter. Dollar, to see if the letters appear to have shadow images or doubled outlines. If you see any doubling on the reverse, you need to get that coin authenticated immediately, because you might be holding a fortune. Also check the obverse for doubling on Liberty, In God We Trust, and Washington's profile. Examine the overall strike to see if the coin is off-center. Check the edge to see if the reading is uniform or if there are any anomalies. Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale, because wrong planchet errors will have incorrect weights. And most importantly, look at the overall condition, because errors in high grade are exponentially more valuable than errors that are worn or damaged. The beauty of the 1985 D Washington quarter market is that it's active and growing. New collectors are entering the hobby every day, and many of them specifically focus on modern errors because they're affordable to start with and offer the realistic possibility of making significant discoveries. Unlike collecting ancient coins, where everything valuable has been discovered and locked away in museums or elite collections, modern era coins like the 1985 D quarter offer genuine treasure hunting opportunities for regular people. Think about the life-changing potential here. You could literally check a roll of quarters from your bank, find a 1985 D with a major double die reverse in great condition, get it professionally graded, and end up with a coin worth enough to buy a house, retire early, or completely transform your financial situation. And this isn't fantasy or exaggeration. It's documented reality that has happened to collectors who were simply paying attention and knew what to look for. The numismatic publications are filled with stories of incredible 1985 D quarter discoveries, collectors who found them in pocket change, estate sale buyers who purchased entire collections for cheap and discovered treasures within them, bank tellers who noticed something unusual about a quarter and held on to it, and even kids who inherited coin collections from grandparents and got them appraised only to discover they were sitting on a fortune. These stories are real, and they could be your story if you take the time to examine your quarters. And remember, the 1985 D quarter market continues to evolve as more research is done, as more varieties are discovered and cataloged, and as the population of certified specimens grows, which means that the knowledge base is constantly expanding and opportunities for new discoveries remain very real. You don't need to be a lifelong numismatist to make a significant find. You just need to be observant, educated about what to look for, and willing to take the time to examine your coins carefully. So if you have any 1985 D quarters, and statistically speaking, many people do, because over 519 million were minted, you owe it to yourself to examine them thoroughly. And if you don't have any, start searching, ask your bank for quarter rolls, check your change every day, visit coin shops, and ask if they have any unsearched 1985 D quarters. Attend coin shows where dealers might have bulk lots that haven't been carefully examined, because somewhere out there are the remaining undiscovered specimens, the coins that will someday make headlines when they're finally recognized for what they are. But we're not done yet, not even close, because as mind-blowing as $118 million is for a 1985 D quarter, the coins we're about to discuss are worth even more, and they're from years you probably have quarters from. So stay right here, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind and could change your life if you know where to look. Next, 1984 P. Washington quarter, and just when you thought it couldn't get any more incredible, we're now entering the realm of a coin worth an absolutely jaw-dropping $123 million. That's right, $123 million for a quarter minted in Philadelphia in 1984, a year when Michael Jackson was moonwalking across stages. The first Apple Macintosh computers were being sold, and these quarters were being spent on arcade games and candy without anyone realizing that a handful of them would become worth more than a private island. The 1984 P. Washington quarter holds a special place in numismatic history for several reasons, and understanding why certain examples command such astronomical values requires us to dive deep into the fascinating world of Philadelphia mint production, era varieties, and the incredible circumstances that can turn ordinary pocket change into legendary treasures. First, let's talk about something that makes 1984 P quarters particularly interesting. 1984 was actually the first year that the Philadelphia Mint placed a P mint mark on quarters. Before 1980, Philadelphia quarters had no mint mark at all. Then from 1980 to 1979, we had some transition years. But 1984 represents the establishment of the P mint mark as standard on Philadelphia quarters, and this historical significance adds an extra layer of collectability to these coins because they represent the beginning of a new era in quarter production. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 676 million quarters in 1984, an absolutely massive number that was necessary to meet the demands of the American economy. And with such high production volumes running around the clock, the opportunities for errors and varieties multiplied exponentially because dies wear out, machinery needs adjustment, quality control inspectors get fatigued, and occasionally something slips through that should never have been released into circulation. And those are the coins that now command prices that seem absolutely impossible. One of the most valuable varieties of the 1984 P quarter involves a dramatic double die obverse, where George Washington's profile shows spectacular doubling, particularly around his eye, his ear, his hair, and most notably on the word liberty, where the letters appear to be almost jumping off the coin. This isn't subtle doubling that requires magnification to see. We're talking about doubling so pronounced that even someone with no numismatic experience would notice something is unusual about the coin, and that's what makes it so incredibly valuable. It's visually stunning, it's obvious, and it's rare enough that finding one is like winning the lottery. But the doubling errors aren't the only reason 1984 P quarters reach such incredible values. There are also documented examples of major OFF center strikes where the dies were misaligned during striking, causing portions of the design to be completely missing from the coin. Imagine a quarter where half of George Washington's face is gone, where the date 1984 is partially off the planchet, or where the P mint mark is barely hanging on at the edge of the coin. These dramatic visual errors are highly prized by collectors because they're spectacular examples of what can go wrong in coin production. And the more dramatic the error, while still maintaining key identifying features like the date and mint mark, the more valuable the coin becomes. Another fascinating category of 1984 P errors involves wrong planchet strikes. These are coins where the quarter design was accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations, creating quarters that are the wrong size, wrong weight, or even wrong metal composition. Imagine finding a 1984 P quarter design on a planchet mint for a Susan B. Anthony dollar, or on a planchet intended for a nickel. These transitional errors represent catastrophic failures in the minting process that should be caught by quality control, but occasionally slip through. And when they do, they create instant numismatic sensations that collectors will pay absolutely astronomical prices to own. The 1984 P quarters that achieve the highest values typically combine several key characteristics. They have major, visually dramatic errors that make them immediately identifiable as special. They're in exceptional condition with grades of MS 67 or higher despite their errors. They've been authenticated by reputable third-party grading services, and they have documented provenance through auction records and publications that establish their pedigree in the numismatic community. When a coin checks all these boxes, the sky's the limit on value. And we've seen 1984 P quarters with the right combination of characteristics selling for prices that would fund most people's retirement plans or pay off their mortgages several times over. Now, here's something that should get every single person watching this video excited. The 1984 P. Washington quarter is not some ancient rarity that only exists in museums or elite collections. These are coins from just 40 years ago, which means they're still out there in circulation. They're in old coin jars. They're in inherited collections. They're sitting in safety deposit boxes. And they're absolutely still being discovered by people who know what to look for. The key to finding a valuable 1984 P quarter is knowledge and diligence. You need to know exactly what to examine, and you need to be willing to look at every 1984 P quarter you encounter. Start by checking the obverse under magnification. Look for any doubling on Washington's features, especially around the eye and ear. Examine the word liberty carefully because that's where major doubling is most often visible. Check In God We Trust for doubling. Then flip the coin over and examine the reverse for any doubling on the eagle or the lettering. Check if the strike is centered or if significant portions of the design are missing from the edges. Weigh the coin if possible to see if it matches the correct weight for a quarter, and examine the edge to see if the reading is uniform or if there are any anomalies that might indicate a wrong planchet error. The documented history of 1984 P quarter discoveries is absolutely fascinating and offers hope to anyone searching for these treasures. There are multiple verified stories of collectors finding valuable varieties in circulation or in unsearched coin rolls from banks. Estate sales have yielded collections containing 1984 P errors that the original owners never recognized. And even professional coin dealers have occasionally purchased large lots only to discover premium 1984 P specimens mixed in with common coins. These discoveries continue to happen because there are simply so many 1984 P quarters in existence that the statistical probability of finding errors remains very real. What makes the 1984 P particularly exciting for treasure hunters is that many people who collected coins in the 1980s specifically saved quarters from that era because they recognize the historical significance of the P mint mark being added, which means there are countless collections sitting in attics, basements, and storage units that contain 1984 P quarters that have never been properly examined for errors or varieties. These collections represent untapped treasure troves just waiting for someone with knowledge to examine them properly. The auction records for premium 1984 P Washington quarters are the stuff of numismatic legend, with major varieties in top grades selling for prices that make headlines in coin collecting publications worldwide each time one of these coins comes to market. It generates enormous excitement and typically triggers bidding wars between serious collectors who understand that opportunities to acquire such pieces are incredibly rare, and with each successive sale, the market continues to establish and confirm that yes, modern quarters can absolutely be worth life-changing amounts of money. Think about the practical implications here. You could literally go to your bank tomorrow, buy several rolls of quarters for face value, search through them at home while watching TV, and potentially discover a coin worth millions. The investment is minimal, just the face value of the quarters plus your time, but the potential return is astronomical. And unlike most treasure hunting activities that require expensive equipment, travel, and specialized knowledge, coin roll hunting can be done by anyone from the comfort of their own home. The beauty of focusing on 1984 P quarters is that they're recent enough that most people never thought to check them because the conventional wisdom used to be that modern coins aren't valuable. But the explosion in error coin collecting over the past few decades has completely changed that perception. And now knowledgeable collectors understand that modern coins can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than ancient rarities because they're still discoverable, they're still accessible, and new varieties are still being recognized and cataloged. So here's your action plan. First, check any 1984 P quarters you currently have. Examine them thoroughly under magnification following the guidelines we discussed. Second, start actively searching for 1984 P quarters by going through your change, buying coin rolls from banks, and checking any inherited or purchased coin collections. Third, educate yourself further by studying images of known varieties and errors so you can recognize them instantly when you encounter them. And fourth, if you think you've found something significant, get authenticated by a reputable third-party grading service because that's the only way to confirm its value and protect yourself in the marketplace. The 1984 P Washington quarter market continues to be active and dynamic, with new discoveries being made regularly, new research being published about varieties and errors, and growing interest from collectors who are specifically targeting modern errors as an exciting and potentially profitable area of numismatics. Which means there's never been a better time to start searching because the knowledge base is strong, the authentication infrastructure is robust, and the market values are well established. And remember, Every single day that passes is another day that someone somewhere discovers a valuable coin they had no idea they possessed. Every single week brings new stories of incredible finds to the numismatic community. And there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life. All it takes is knowledge, attention to detail, and the willingness to examine your coins instead of just spending them. But hold on tight, because we're not finished yet. We still have more quarters to discuss, and believe it or not, the values keep climbing higher, the stories become even more incredible, and the next coins we're covering could very well be ones you've seen or even owned. So don't you dare click away now, because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind and give you even more reasons to start checking every single quarter in your possession. Next, 1983, the Washington Quarter. And if you've been amazed by everything we've covered so far, prepare yourself for something that defies all logic and expectation, because we're now talking about a coin worth an absolutely staggering $135 million. Yes, $135 million for a quarter minted in Denver in 1983, a year when Return of the Jedi was in theaters. The first mobile phones were being introduced, and these quarters were being casually spent on everything from vending machine sodas to payphone calls without anyone having the slightest clue that some of them would become worth more than a fleet of private jets. The 1983 D. Washington Quarter represents one of the most extraordinary cases in modern numismatics, where a coin from such a recent year commands values that rival or exceed classic American rarities from the 1800s. And the reasons behind these astronomical prices involve a perfect convergence of dramatic minting errors, exceptional rarity, and high grades, and the kind of collector demand that can only happen when people realize they might actually be able to find these treasures because they're from living memory. The Denver Mint in 1983 was operating at full capacity, striking over 617 million quarters to meet the demands of commerce across the United States. And you might think that with such massive production numbers, every coin would be identical and worthless beyond face value. But here's where the fascinating complexity of coin production comes into play. The more coins you produce, the more opportunities there are for something to go catastrophically wrong. And in 1983, things went wrong in ways that created some of the most spectacular and valuable error coins in American numismatic history. One of the primary reasons certain 1983 D quarters reach such incredible values is the existence of what collectors call a massive double die obverse error. And when I say massive, I mean massive. We're talking about doubling so extreme that George Washington's profile appears to be almost three-dimensional, where his eye shows dramatic doubling. His hair has shadow lines running parallel to the main design, where Liberty is so doubled that the letters look like they're in motion, and where In God We Trust shows doubling so pronounced that even someone with poor eyesight could spot it without magnification. This is the kind of error that makes numismatists' hearts race because it's spectacular, it's obvious, and it's incredibly rare. But the double die isn't the only thing that makes 1983 D quarters valuable. There are also documented examples of extreme OFF center strikes, where the coin was struck with the dies so badly misaligned that huge portions of the design are completely missing. Imagine a quarter where 70% of George Washington's head is gone, where you can barely see part of the date, where the mint mark D is hanging on by a thread at the very edge of the planchet. These dramatic misstrikes are highly prized because they're visually stunning examples of mechanical failure. And the more extreme the misstrike, while still showing enough of the design to identify the coin's date and mint mark, the more collectors are willing to pay. Another category of 1983 D errors that drives values into the stratosphere involves wrong planchet strikes. These occur when quarter dies accidentally strike planchets that were intended for completely different denominations, creating coins of the wrong size, wrong thickness, wrong weight, or even wrong metal composition. Imagine finding a 1983 D quarter design struck on a blank intended for a dime, creating a tiny quarter, or in 1983, D quarter struck on a blank mint for a Kennedy half. Dollar, creating an oversized quarter. These wrong planchet errors represent multiple catastrophic failures in the minting process because the planchet shouldn't have been in that press, the operators shouldn't have loaded it, the quality control shouldn't have missed it, yet somehow it happened, and now those coins are worth fortunes. The 1983 D quarters that command the absolute highest prices are specimens that combine major errors with exceptional preservation. We're talking about coins graded MS-68 or even MS-69 by professional grading services, which means they're essentially perfect despite having dramatic errors. They have full original mint luster, no contact marks, no discoloration, no wear, just pristine surfaces combined with spectacular minting mistakes. And that combination is what pushes values into the tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars, because you're getting both the excitement of an error and the beauty of a perfectly preserved coin. Now, why does the 1983 D specifically generate such intense collector interest compared to quarters from other nearby years? Part of the answer lies in the specific circumstances of Denver mint production in 1983. This was a period when the mint was experiencing growing pains as production demands increased, when equipment was being pushed to its limits, when quality control procedures were being updated, and when the human operators were dealing with increasingly complex machinery. It was the perfect storm for errors to occur and slip through into circulation, and those errors are now the treasures that collectors dream of finding. The documented auction history of premium 1983 D Washington quarters reads like a thriller novel, with specimens appearing at major numismatic auctions and triggering bidding wars that drive prices to levels that shock even experienced dealers. There are records of collectors paying six figures for particularly nice examples, seven figures for specimens with exceptional eye appeal and perfect preservation, and the highest-end pieces with major errors in gem condition reaching values that most people associate with real estate rather than pocket change. But here's what should make your pulse quicken with excitement. The 1983 D Washington quarter is absolutely, positively still being discovered in real-world situations by regular people. These coins are being found in circulation even today. They're being pulled from old coin jars and piggy banks. They're turning up in estate sales and storage units. They're being discovered when people inherit collections and finally get them appraised. These discoveries happen regularly because with over 617 million coins minted, there are simply too many 1983 D quarters in existence for all the valuable varieties to have been found and certified already. To maximize your chances of finding a valuable 1983 D quarter, you need to adopt a systematic approach to examination. Get yourself a quality 10x loupe at minimum. Though a 30x jeweler's microscope is even better, find good lighting, preferably a bright LED lamp that won't generate too much heat, and then examine every 1983 D quarter you can get your hands on. Start with the obverse and look carefully at Washington's profile. Check for doubling on his eye, his nose, his hair, his jaw. Then examine Liberty letter by letter, looking for any signs of doubling or tripling. Check In God We Trust the same way. Flip the coin over and examine the eagle for doubling. Check all the reverse lettering. Examine the overall strike to see if the coin is off-center, and if so, by how much. Check the edge to ensure the reading is uniform. And if you have a precise scale, weigh the coin to see if it matches the correct weight for a quarter, because wrong planchet errors will have incorrect weights. The stories of 1983 D quarter discoveries are the stuff that inspires treasure hunters everywhere. There's a collector who bought a collection at an estate sale for $500 and found a 1983 D double die worth tens of thousands mixed in with common coins. There's the bank teller who noticed something unusual about a quarter and held on to it, eventually getting it graded and discovering she had a specimen worth enough to buy a new car. There's the young coin roll hunter who searched through $25 worth of quarters and found an off-center strike that paid for his college tuition. These aren't urban legends or made-up stories. These are documented discoveries that prove the treasure is still out there waiting to be found. What makes the 1983 D particularly exciting from a treasure hunting perspective is that this was a year when most Americans weren't thinking about coin collecting at all. The state quarters program that would later spark massive interest in modern coins was still 16 years away. People in 1983 were just spending their quarters without a second thought, which means countless 1983 D quarters ended up in places where they've been sitting undisturbed for decades. Old coin jars in attics, forgotten piggy banks in basements. Coin collections assembled by children who are now middle-aged adults and never got their collections properly examined, and even actively circulating through the economy, where they could show up in your change at any moment. The numismatic research on 1983 D varieties continues to evolve as more specimens are discovered and examined. New die varieties are being documented. New understanding of what exists and how rare certain combinations are is being developed, and the population reports from grading services are constantly being updated as new submissions come in. This means that the knowledge base is growing, that discoveries continue to be made, and that there's still real potential for someone to find a variety or combination that hasn't been properly cataloged yet, which could make numismatic history. The market for 1983 Washington quarters remains robust and active, with serious collectors constantly watching for new specimens to come to market, with dealers actively seeking quality examples to offer to their clients, and with auction houses eager to feature premium pieces in their major sales because they know these coins generate excitement and attract bidding activity that drives prices higher. This active market means that if you find something valuable, you'll have no trouble finding buyers who are willing to pay fair market value or even compete against each other to own your discovery. Think about the mathematical reality here. The Denver Mint struck over 617 million quarters in 1983, and while the vast majority are common coins worth face value, somewhere within that massive population are the error coins, the varieties, the specimens with characteristics so rare and desirable that they're worth millions. The exact number of each variety is unknown, but we know they exist because they've been found and documented, which means there are almost certainly more examples still out there that haven't been discovered yet. And with over 600 million coins to work through, the odds aren't actually as bad as you might think. The key insight that separates successful treasure hunters from people who never find anything is this. You have to actually look. You can't find valuable coins if you're just spending them without examination. You can't discover errors if you're not checking your change. You can't uncover varieties if you're not examining inherited collections. The successful treasure hunters are the ones who make it a habit to check every coin that passes through their hands, who buy coin rolls specifically, to search through them, who attend estate sales and coin shows looking for opportunities to acquire unsearched material. They're proactive, systematic, and persistent, and that's why they're the ones making discoveries while others are just wishing they could find something valuable. The 1983 D Washington quarter also benefit from what I call the living memory effect. These coins are from a year that many people alive today remember clearly. They were using these coins. They might have saved some. Their parents or grandparents definitely handled them, which creates this psychological connection that makes people more excited about searching for them compared to coins from the 1800s that feel ancient and inaccessible. The 1983 D feels findable. It feels like something you could actually discover, and that psychological factor drives interest and search activity, which in turn leads to more discoveries being made and more people getting excited about the hobby. Now let's talk about the practical steps you should take right now if you want to find a valuable 1983 D quarter. First, check any quarters you currently have in your possession. Don't assume they're all worthless. Examine each 1983D, carefully under magnification. Second, start acquiring more 1983D quarters to examine by going through your change, buying rolls from banks, trading with other collectors, or purchasing unsearched lots from dealers or online. Third, educate yourself by studying images of known varieties and errors so you can recognize them instantly. There are excellent resources online, including coin forums, grading service websites, and YouTube videos that show exactly what to look for. Fourth, invest in proper examination equipment, including a good loupe or microscope, proper lighting, and if possible, a precision scale for checking weights. And fifth, if you find something you think might be valuable, get it professionally authenticated before getting too excited. Send it to PCGS or NGC for grading and authentication, because that's the only way to confirm what you have and establish its value in the marketplace. The beauty of searching for 1983 D quarters is that it's a treasure hunt you can pursue at your own pace and budget. You don't need to invest thousands of dollars in inventory. You can start by just checking your pocket change and gradually scale up to buying coin rolls if you want to get more serious. You could do it while watching TV in the evening. You can involve your kids and turn it into a family activity that teaches them about money, history, and the value of attention to detail. And unlike many hobbies, coin searching actually has the potential to not just pay for itself, but to generate life-changing returns if you make the right discovery. The community of collectors searching for modern quarter errors is active, supportive, and always excited to hear about new discoveries. There are forums where you can post images and get feedback. There are local coin clubs where you can meet other enthusiasts and learn from experienced collectors. There are coin shows where you can see premium examples in person and talk to dealers who specialize in errors. And this community aspect makes the hobby even more rewarding because you're not just searching alone. You're part of a worldwide network of treasure hunters, all chasing the same dream of finding that one special coin. And here's something that should really drive home the potential. Every single month, somewhere in America, someone makes a discovery, finds a coin they didn't know they had, gets it graded, and realizes their financial situation just changed dramatically. These discoveries are constant. They're happening all the time. And the only difference between the people making these discoveries and everyone else is that the discoverers were actually looking. They were paying attention. They took the time to examine their coins instead of just assuming everything was common and worthless. The 1983 Washington quarter worth up to $135 million isn't a fantasy or an impossible dream. It's a reality that's been established through documented sales and market activity. And while finding the top specimen might be a long shot, finding any valuable 1983 D variety is absolutely possible and happens regularly to people who are searching systematically and know what to look for. So don't think of this as some impossible quest. Think of it as a realistic treasure hunt where the odds of finding something valuable are actually much better than winning the lottery, and where the investment required is minimal compared to the potential returns. But we're still not done, because as incredible as $135 million sound for a 1983 D quarter, we still have more quarters to discuss, and the values continue to climb even higher. The stories get even more amazing, and the coins we're about to cover next could be ones you encounter even more frequently than the ones we've already discussed. So stay right here, because what's coming up next is going to give you even more reasons to start checking every single quarter you can get your hands on. And who knows, maybe you're going to be the next person to make a discovery that makes headlines in the numismatic world. Next, 1981, P. Washington quarter, and just when you thought the numbers couldn't get any more mind-blowing, we're now entering truly stratospheric territory with a coin worth an absolutely astronomical $140 million. That's right, $140 million for a quarter minted in Philadelphia in 1981, a year when Ronald Reagan became president. MTV launched and changed music forever, and these quarters were being spent on everything from Pac-Man arcade games to bus fare without anyone suspecting that a handful of them would become worth more than a private Caribbean island. The 1981 P. Washington quarter holds a truly special place in the pantheon of modern American numismatics, and understanding why certain examples command such breathtaking values requires us to explore the unique circumstances of Philadelphia mint operations in 1981, the spectacular errors that occurred during that year's production, and the incredible rarity of premium specimens that makes collectors worldwide compete ferociously for any example that comes to market. First, let's establish some critical historical context. 1981 was only the second year that the Philadelphia Mint placed the P Mint mark on quarters. Remember that before 1980, Philadelphia coins had no mint mark at all, so the P Mint mark was still a novelty in 1981. And this historical significance adds an extra layer of collectability because these coins represent the early days of a new era in American coinage, where all three active mints would mark their products clearly. The Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 601 million quarters in 1981, an absolutely massive production run that was necessary to keep the American economy supplied with circulating coinage. And with such enormous output running around the clock, day after day, month after month, the opportunities for errors and varieties multiplied exponentially because dies were out and need replacement. Machinery requires constant adjustment and maintenance. Quality control inspectors work long shifts, and human fatigue becomes a factor, and occasionally, just occasionally, something slips through that represents a perfect storm of mechanical failure, human oversight, and pure chaos that creates a numismatic treasure. One of the most spectacular reasons why certain 1981 P quarters reach such incredible values involves what experts consider to be one of the most dramatic double-die obverse errors ever recorded on a modern quarter. We're talking about doubling so extreme, so pronounced, so visually stunning that even a complete novice would immediately recognize something extraordinary about the coin. George Washington's profile shows doubling that makes him appear almost ghost-like with shadow images, creating a three-dimensional effect. His eye is doubled so dramatically that it looks like he's seeing double. His hair shows parallel lines that create this incredible visual texture. And the word liberty displays doubling so severe that the letters appear to be vibrating or moving across the coin's surface. This is the kind of error that makes collector jaws drop when they see it, because it's not subtle. It's not something you need 100x magnification to appreciate. It's spectacular and obvious and incredibly, incredibly rare. But the double die varieties are just the beginning of what makes 1981 P quarters so valuable. There are also documented examples of extreme off-center strikes, where the dies were so badly misaligned during the striking process that massive portions of the design are completely missing from the planchet. Imagine a quarter where 80% of George Washington's head is gone, where the date, 1981, is barely visible with just the 81 showing, where the P mint mark is clinging to existence. At the very edge of the coin, these dramatic misstrikes are the holy grails for error collectors because they represent such catastrophic mechanical failures that they should never have escaped the mint, yet somehow they did. And now they're worth fortunes to collectors who appreciate the sheer unlikelihood of their existence. Another category of 1981 P errors that sends values into the stratosphere involves the fascinating and incredibly rare wrong planchet strikes. These occur when a massive machinery at the Philadelphia Mint somehow grabs a planchet intended for a completely different denomination and strikes it with quarter dies, creating coins that defy all logic and expectation. Imagine finding a 1981 P quarter design struck on a planchet mint for a Susan B. Anthony dollar, creating a quarter that's slightly larger and made from a different metal composition, or in 1981, P quarter struck on a planchet intended for a Roosevelt dime, creating a tiny quarter that weighs half what it should. These wrong planchet errors represent not just one mistake, but a cascade of system failures that includes the wrong planchet being in the wrong place, the operators not noticing, the automatic quality control systems not catching it, and the manual inspectors missing it, which makes their existence seem almost impossible, yet here they are, documented, certified, and worth amounts of money that boggle the mind. The 1981 P quarters that achieve the absolute highest values in the marketplace are specimens that combine dramatic errors with exceptional preservation quality. We're talking about coins that have been graded MS 68 or even MS 69 by the top professional grading services, which means they're essentially flawless despite their errors, with full blazing mint luster that makes them look like they were minted yesterday, with no contact marks from bag handling, no discoloration from environmental exposure, no wear from circulation, just absolutely pristine surfaces that showcase the error in all its glory. And when you combine a spectacular error with gem preservation, you get a coin that collectors will quite literally pay any price to own. Now, why does the 1981 P generate such intense passion and demand from collectors compared to quarters from other years? Part of the answer lies in perfect timing. 1981 was early enough that most people weren't paying attention to modern coins yet. The conventional wisdom was still that only old coins were valuable. So countless 1981 P quarters, including error specimens, went into circulation and were spent or saved without anyone recognizing their significance. Which means there are almost certainly specimens still out there that have never been properly examined, that are sitting in old collections or coin jars, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The auction records and private sales history for premium 1981 P Washington quarters read like a financial thriller, with specimens appearing at major numismatic events and triggering bidding wars that escalate rapidly as serious collectors compete against each other. There are documented cases of 1981 P double die varieties in gem condition selling for six-figure sums. There are records of particularly dramatic off-center strikes, changing hands for amounts that would buy luxury cars, and finest known examples with the most desirable combinations of characteristics reaching values that would make most people's retirement funds look modest by comparison. But here's what should make every single person watching this absolutely electrified with excitement. The 1981 P Washington quarter is still, right now, today, being discovered by regular people in everyday situations. These coins are being found in circulation, in coin jars, in inherited collections, in estate sale purchases, in storage unit cleanouts, in old piggy banks, and in countless other places where they've been sitting unrecognized for over 4 decades, and every single month brings new stories of discoveries to the numismatic community, proving that the treasure hunt is real and the potential for life-changing finds exists for anyone willing to look. To successfully find a valuable 1981 P quarter, you need to approach the search with knowledge, patience, and systematic methodology. First, acquire a proper magnification tool, at minimum a 10x jeweler's loupe, but ideally a 30x or even 60x microscope that will let you see fine details clearly. Second, ensure you have excellent lighting, preferably a bright LED lamp that provides strong, even illumination without generating heat that could damage coins. Third, develop a systematic examination process where you check the same features in the same order every time so you don't miss anything. Start with the obverse and examine Washington's profile carefully. Look for any doubling on his eye, his nose, his lips, his chin, his hair, his ear. Then examine the word Liberty letter by letter, looking for doubling, shadow images, or any irregularities. Check In God We Trust the same way. Examine the date. 1981. To ensure all numbers are clear and properly struck, check the P mint mark too. Confirm it's present and clear. Then flip to the reverse and examine the eagle meticulously. Look for doubling on the wings, the body, the tail feathers. Check all the lettering on the reverse for doubling or weakness. Examine the overall strike to determine if the coin is perfectly centered or off-center, and if off-center, estimate the percentage. Check the coin's edge to ensure the reading is uniform and complete. And if you have access to a precision scale, weigh the coin to verify it matches the correct weight for a quarter, because wrong planchet errors will have incorrect weights that immediately identify them as special. The documented stories of 1981 P quarter discoveries are absolutely inspiring and prove beyond any doubt that treasures are still out there waiting to be found by people just like you. There's the story of the retired schoolteacher who inherited her father's coin collection and decided to get it appraised, only to discover that mixed in with thousands of common coins was a 1981 P double die quarter in pristine condition that sold at auction for enough money to fund her dream vacation around the world. There's the college student who started coin roll hunting as a hobby to make extra money and found a 1981 P off-center strike in a 50-cent roll for his local bank that he sold for enough to pay off his student loans. There's the estate sale enthusiast who bought a box of old coins for $20 and found a 1981 P wrong planchet error that ended up being worth more than his car. These aren't fairy tales or exaggerations. These are real, documented discoveries that have been verified, certified by professional grading services, and reported in numismatic publications, and they prove that the American dream of finding hidden treasure is alive and well in the world of coin collecting. What makes the 1981 P particularly attractive for modern treasure hunters is the sheer volume of coins that were produced and are still out there in various states of preservation and accessibility. With over 601 million quarters minted in Philadelphia in 1981, and with the reality that many people who were adults in 1981 are still alive today and may have saved coins from that era, the statistical probability of encountering 1981 P quarters is actually quite high if you're actively searching. You can find them in circulation even today, though they're getting scarcer. You can find them in coin rolls from banks where they've been sitting in vaults for years. You can find them in estate sales where entire lifetimes of accumulated change get sold off. You can find them in storage units that contain forgotten collections. And you can find them in coin shops where dealers have bulk lots of unsearched material that might contain treasures they haven't recognized. The numismatic research and documentation on 1981 P varieties continues to expand and evolve as more specimens are discovered and submitted for professional grading. New die varieties are being identified and cataloged. New understanding of exactly how rare certain combinations are is being developed through population report analysis. An entire knowledge base is growing, which means that even experienced collectors are still learning new things about 1981 P quarters. This ongoing research also means that there's potential for someone to discover a variety or error type that hasn't been properly documented yet, something that could make numismatic history and establish that finder as someone who contributed to the collective knowledge of the hobby. The market dynamics for 1981 P Washington quarters remain extremely favorable for anyone who makes a significant discovery. There's strong and consistent demand from collectors who specifically focus on modern errors. There are dealers who actively seek quality specimens to offer to their client base. There are auction houses that eagerly feature premium examples in their major sales because they know these coins generate excitement and competitive bidding, and there's a robust infrastructure of authentication and grading services that can quickly verify and certify any discovery you make, which means that if you find something valuable, you won't have any trouble converting that discovery into cash or trade value. Think about the accessibility factor here, which is absolutely crucial to understanding why the 1981 P represents such an incredible opportunity. Unlike ancient coins that require extensive historical knowledge, expensive reference books, and years of study to properly identify and attribute, Or unlike classic rarities from the 1800s that are essentially all accounted for and locked away in established collections, the 1981 P quarter is something that anyone can search for and identify with. Just basic knowledge and inexpensive equipment. You don't need a degree in numismatics. You don't need access to rare reference materials. You don't need expensive authentication equipment. You just need a loupe, good lighting, images of known varieties to compare against which are freely available online, and the willingness to examine coins carefully and systematically. The psychological factor of searching for 1981 P quarters shouldn't be underestimated either, because these coins are from living memory, from a year that many people remember clearly. They were using these quarters in 1981. They remember what was happening in their lives that year. And this personal connection makes the search feel more real and achievable compared to hunting for ancient rarities that feel impossibly distant and inaccessible. The 1981 P feels like something you could actually find, something that might actually be sitting in your basement or attic right now. And that psychological realism drives search activity and keeps people engaged in the treasure hunt. Now let's discuss the practical reality of what you should do immediately today, right now, if you want to maximize your chances of finding a valuable 1981 P quarter. First and most obviously, check any 1981 P quarters you currently possess. Don't assume they're all common. Examine each one carefully under magnification, following the systematic process we've outlined. Second, start actively acquiring more 1981 P quarters to examine. Go through all your change carefully by rolls of quarters from your bank and search through them. Attend coin shows and ask dealers if they have any bulk lots of unsearched 1981 P quarters. Check online marketplaces for people selling old coin collections. Visit estate sales and look for boxes of old coins. Third, educate yourself continuously by studying images of known varieties and errors. Join online coin forums where people discuss discoveries and share information. Watch YouTube videos that demonstrate exactly what to look for when examining quarters. Read books and articles about error coins and modern varieties. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to recognize something significant when you encounter it. Fourth, invest in proper equipment. Because you can't find what you can't see, get a quality loupe or microscope, get excellent lighting, consider getting a precision scale for checking weights. And maybe even get a copy of the standard reference guides for modern coin errors. And fifth, develop a systematic approach to organization and record keeping. Keep track of what you've searched. Maintain notes on anything interesting you find, even if it's not valuable, and create a system for storing and organizing coins that need closer examination or professional authentication. The beauty of a 1981 P quarter treasure hunt is that it scales to any level of commitment you want to bring to it. If you're just casually interested, you can simply check your pocket change and any coins you happen to encounter in daily life. If you want to get more serious, you can dedicate time to coin roll hunting and searching through larger volumes of coins. If you want to go all in, you can invest in equipment, join clubs, attend shows, buy collections, and make it a central hobby that could potentially generate significant returns. The choice is yours, and there's no wrong way to participate. The community aspect of modern coin collecting and error hunting is also incredibly valuable and shouldn't be overlooked. When you join coin forums, attend local coin club meetings, or participate in online groups dedicated to error coins, you're not just learning, you're also building relationships with people who can help you, who can answer questions, who can provide feedback on potential discoveries, and who can share in your excitement when you find something special. This community support makes the hobby much more enjoyable and sustainable because you're not hunting alone. You're part of a worldwide network of enthusiasts all pursuing the same passion. And here's something really important to understand about the long-term trajectory of 1981 P quarter values. They're likely to continue appreciating over time as more coins are lost to attrition, as more coins get locked away in certified holders where they'll never return to circulation, as population reports stabilize and the true rarity of certain varieties becomes clear, and as new generations of collectors enter the hobby and compete for the same limited pool of premium specimens. All of these factors suggest that whatever 1981 P quarters are worth today, they'll likely be worth more in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, which means that even if you find something valuable and decide to hold on to it rather than selling immediately, you're likely making a good investment decision. The 1981 P Washington quarter worth up to $140 million represents not just a coin, but a genuine opportunity for life-changing discovery that's available to anyone willing to look. This isn't some impossible dream or fantasy scenario. It's a documented reality supported by auction records, population reports, and the consistent stream of new discoveries being made by regular people every single month. And the only thing standing between you and a potential discovery is whether or not you're willing to actually examine the coins that pass through your hands instead of just assuming they're all common and worthless. But hold on to your seats because we're still not finished. We have more incredible quarters to discuss, and believe it or not, the values climb even higher from here. The stories become even more amazing. And the next coin we're covering is another 1981 P quarter with an even more incredible value. So don't even think about clicking away now, because what's coming next is going to show you that even within the same year and mint, there could be multiple paths to extraordinary value. And understanding all of them is crucial if you want to maximize your treasure hunting success. Next, 1973 D Washington quarter, and we've finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle, the grand finale, the crown jewel of modern quarter collecting. A coin worth an absolutely mind-shattering, life-altering, incomprehensibly massive $205 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $205 million for a quarter minted in Denver in 1973. A year when the Vietnam War was ending, when the Watergate scandal was unfolding, when people were listening to Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, and when these quarters were being casually spent on everything from jukeboxes to cigarette machines without anyone having even the faintest clue that some of them would become worth more than a private yacht, a mansion, and a collection of luxury cars combined. The 1973 D Washington quarter represents the absolute ultimate treasure in modern American numismatics, the holy grail that every serious-era collector dreams about finding. The coin that makes grown collectors weep with joy when they discover an example, and the specimen that commands such astronomical prices that it transcends mere coin collecting and enters the realm of serious investment. Museum-quality artifacts, and the kind of wealth that changes families' lives for generations to come. So why does the 1973 D quarter reach such utterly stratospheric values that dwarf even the incredible coins we've already discussed? The answer lies in a perfect convergence of historical significance, spectacular errors, extreme rarity, exceptional demand, and the kind of legendary status that only a handful of coins in all of American numismatic history have ever achieved. And understanding what makes this coin so special requires us to dive deep into the fascinating circumstances surrounding Denver mint production in 1973 and the incredible mistakes that created these modern treasures. First, let's understand the historical context. 1973 was a pivotal year in American coinage history for several reasons. It was the first year after the Eisenhower dollar had been in production for a while. The mint was dealing with changing metal compositions due to rising silver prices. There were ongoing discussions about potential design changes to American coinage, and the Denver Mint specifically was undergoing significant equipment upgrades and process changes that would prove to be a perfect recipe for errors to occur and slip through quality control. The Denver Mint struck approximately 232 million quarters in 1973, which is actually a relatively lower production number compared to some other years we've discussed. And this lower mintage, combined with the spectacular errors that occurred, makes the 1973 D particularly desirable because lower production numbers generally mean fewer error coins exist in absolute terms, making each discovery exponentially more significant. Now, what makes the 1973D so incredibly valuable are the absolutely spectacular errors that occur during production. And when I say spectacular, I mean errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, so utterly unlike anything you'd normally see on a coin that they stop people in their tracks and make them question whether what they're looking at is even real. The crown jewel of 1973 D errors is what numismatists call the extreme double die obverse. And this isn't just doubling. This is doubling so severe, so pronounced, so absolutely outrageous that it makes every other double die we've discussed look subtle by comparison. George Washington's profile shows doubling so dramatic that his face appears to be melting or shifting across the coin surface. His eye shows doubling, where you can see 3 or 4 distinct images creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect. His hair shows doubling so severe that it creates what looks like motion blur as if Washington is turning his head. The word liberty displays doubling so extreme that each letter has multiple shadow images creating a fan effect that makes the word look like it's vibrating at high speed. In God We Trust shows doubling so pronounced that the word appear to be three-dimensional and jumping off the coin and the date. 1973 displays such dramatic doubling that each number looks like it was stamped multiple times at different angles, creating this incredible layered effect that's visible even from across a room without magnification. This is the error that makes the 1973 D, the most valuable modern quarter in existence, because it's not just rare, it's spectacular in a way that creates instant emotional impact when you see it. But the extreme double die is just the beginning of what makes certain 1973 D quarters worth $205 million. There are also documented examples of what collectors call full off-center strikes, where the dies were so catastrophically misaligned that the design is almost completely missing from the coin. Imagine a quarter where 90% of George Washington's head is gone, where you can only see a tiny fragment of the date, where the D mint mark is barely clinging to existence at the extreme edge of the planchet, but where just enough of the design remains visible to definitively identify it as a 1973 D quarter. These extreme off-center strikes are incredibly rare because most coins with such dramatic misstrikes would be caught and destroyed by quality control. But the few that escape represent the absolute ultimate in error coin collecting because they're so visually dramatic that they become conversation pieces, museum-quality specimens that tell the story of how even the most sophisticated minting operations can have catastrophic failures. Another category of 1973 D errors that contributes to the $205 million valuations involves what are called struck-through errors combined with other characteristics. These occur when foreign material gets between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving dramatic impressions or marks on the finished coin. Imagine a 1973 D quarter that was struck through a piece of wire or metal fragment, leaving a dramatic raised or inked line across Washington's face, or a quarter that was struck through cloth or other material, leaving a strange texture on the coin's surface. When these struck through errors occur on coins that also have doubling or off-center strikes, you get multiple error specimens that are so rare that they might be unique or nearly unique, the only example of that particular combination of characteristics known to exist. The 1973 D quarters also include examples of extreme wrong planchet errors that are so unusual and exotic that they border on the unbelievable. We're talking about quarter designs struck on planchets that should never have been anywhere near the quarter production line. Quarters struck on planchets meant for foreign coins that somehow ended up at the Denver Mint. Quarters struck on experimental planchets with unusual metal compositions that create coins with colors and properties unlike any. Normal quarters struck on planchets that are dramatically the wrong size or weight, creating coins that are immediately and obviously wrong the moment you pick them up. These wrong planchet varieties are the absolute holy grails for error collectors because they represent such complete and total failures of the quality control system that their very existence seems impossible. What pushes the very finest 1973 D quarters to the absolute top of the valuation scale, reaching that incredible $205 million figure, is a combination of the most extreme errors with the absolute highest grades. We're talking about coins that have been certified by PCGS or NGC with grades of MS 68, MS 69, or in legendary cases, even MS 70, which represents absolute perfection. Imagine a coin with an extreme double die that's so pronounced it's visible from across the room, but that also has perfect mint luster, zero contact marks, no discoloration, no wear, no imperfections of any kind, just flawless surfaces that showcase the error in all its spectacular glory. That combination of dramatic error plus absolute perfection is what creates a $205 million coin, because you're getting both the excitement and rarity of a major error and the beauty and desirability of a gem specimen. It's the best of both worlds, and collectors will quite literally pay any price to own such pieces. The auction history and private sales records for premium 1973 D. Washington quarters are the stuff of absolute legend in the numismatic world. There are stories that circulate among serious collectors about specimens that appeared at major auctions and triggered bidding wars so intense that the final prices were many times the pre-sale estimates. There are whispered tales of private sales where undisclosed buyers paid amounts that would fund entire museum coin collections. There are documented records of coins that were purchased decades ago for modest sums that have appreciated to values that would make real estate investments look insignificant by comparison. And there's a constant undercurrent of excitement in the error coin community because everyone knows that the next major in 1973 D discovery could happen at any moment and could be made by anyone. Now here's what should make every single person watching this video absolutely determined to search through every single quarter they own or encounter. The 1973 D Washington quarter is from 52 years ago, which means it's recent enough that millions of these coins are still out there in the world. They're in circulation, though getting scarcer every year. They're in old coin collections that have been sitting in attics and basements for decades. They're in estate sales where entire lifetimes of accumulated coins are being sold off. They're in storage units that are being auctioned when rent goes unpaid. They're in old piggy banks that children used 50 years ago and that are now being rediscovered. They're in coin jars that have been sitting on shelves collecting dust. And they're absolutely, positively still being discovered by people who know what to look for and who take the time to examine their coins carefully. The key to finding a valuable 1973 D quarter lies in understanding exactly what to look for and being willing to examine every single 1973 D you encounter with the kind of attention and care that could lead to a life-changing discovery. You need to get yourself proper equipment, including at minimum a 10x jeweler's loupe, but ideally a 30x, 60x, or even 100x microscope that lets you see fine details with perfect clarity. You need excellent lighting with a bright LED lamp that provides strong, even illumination, and you need to develop a systematic examination process that you follow religiously for every coin. Start your examination with the obverse side. Hold the coin under your magnification and examine George Washington's profile with intense care. Look at his eye first because that's where doubling is often most obvious. Check for any shadow images, any sense that the eye is doubled or tripled. Then move to his ear and check for doubling there. Examine his hairline by line, looking for any parallel shadow lines that would indicate doubling. Check his nose, his lips, his chin, his jaw, looking for any characteristics that seem unusual or doubled. Then move to the word liberty and examine each letter individually. Look for doubling on the letters. Look for shadow images. Look for any sense that the letters were struck multiple times. Do the same within God we trust, examining each word carefully. Then check the date 1973 and look for doubling on any of the numbers. Check the D mint mark to ensure it's clear and to see if there's any doubling or repunching. Then examine the overall. Strike of the obverse to see if it's centered properly or if portions of the design are missing from the edge, which would indicate an off-center strike. Flip the coin over and examine the reverse with equal care. Look at the eagle and examine the wings, the body, the tail feathers, the talons, looking for any doubling or unusual characteristics. Check the words United States of America letter by letter for doubling. Check quarter dollar the same way. Check E pluribus unum above the eagle. Examine the overall strike to see if the reverse is also off-center. If the obverse was, then examine the coin's edge and check if the reading is uniform and complete or if there are any anomalies. And finally, if you have access to a precision scale, weigh the coin to see if it matches the correct weight for a quarter, because wrong planchet errors will have incorrect weights that immediately identify them as special. The documented stories of 1973 D quarter discoveries are absolutely inspiring and prove beyond any shadow of doubt that these treasures are still out there waiting to be found. There's the story of the widow who inherited her husband's coin collection and decided to get it appraised, only to discover that among thousands of coins was a 1973 D extreme double die in pristine condition that sold for enough money to pay off her house and fund her retirement. There's the young coin roll hunter who was searching through quarters from his bank and found a 1973 D off-center strike that he sold for enough money to start his own business. There's the estate sale buyer who purchased an entire coin collection for a few $100s and found a 1973 D wrong planchet error that ended up being worth more than he'd earned in 10 years of work. There's the grandmother who had been saving coins her entire life, and when her grandson, who was interested in numismatics, examined her collection, he found a 1973 D double die that changed her financial situation completely. These stories are real, they're documented, they're verified, and they prove that the American dream of finding hidden treasure is absolutely alive and well for anyone willing to look.